Hi, this is vlog number 29. Me, Mark, trying to help share my story about the journey to try and squat double body weight by April of 2022, having started it in April 2021. So last week I talked a little bit about kind of load velocity profiling that had changed and some issues around hip mechanics, and you may have seen my additional video this week on anterior pelvic tilt. But progress on that is going okay. Make some sort of changes in terms of rehab, just some more soft tissue work, and that's starting to get there. It took a few weeks for me to fix that, but I can certainly feel like I'm squatting better, and my numbers are reflecting that. So this week is a chance to think about what's going to come next. So I've been on this program for far too long, really. That's because of different challenges I've had, and not really felt like I've given it a fair ride, and just trying to make sure that I can see out this particular program till the end of its kind of adaptive life cycle. But that will come. Hopefully, next couple of weeks we'll see that kind of have some meaningful changes, and then it's time to move on. So I want to try and talk today about how and why I'm going to move on in different ways. The first change I've made already is how I look at monitoring other metrics, not just squat strength. So obviously, I've got bar velocity is the main and central measure I use to check if I'm improving strength. But I mentioned quite a few weeks back, probably quite early on in the vlog series, that I'm quite interested in weightlifting and I'd like to get back into weightlifting. I'm thinking a bit further ahead. Hopefully, when this goal is kind of polished off, the next goal will be looking at something weightlifting orientated and trying to look at a particular total, like a snatch and clean and jerk total. That's something that I really quite interests me. That's something that I've never achieved yet either. It's like a qualifying total for a masters meet. So that's something that I'll probably start thinking about. So I've kind of made a bit of a shift in terms of how I monitor my progress from a power point of view. I have been looking at vertical jumps, and those people are familiar with kind of jump testing and monitoring. It's quite a common practice. But if I just kind of show you the data that I had been collecting, I'll come back to that in a second. It's really noisy and it's really invariable, and I shared quite a few weeks back. There's a disconnect between jump height and jump peak power, jump mean power, and so how you jump and how high you jump aren't always connected that well. And those people into the scientific literature, J.B. Moran did a quite interesting paper that kind of expressed that as well. And ultimately, I'm not really bothered about how high I jump. I like to think that the stronger I get, the higher I'll jump, and that's okay. It's not really a measure that makes any great meaningful difference to me if I should jump higher or not higher. So what I've gone away from that, and this is me looking at my own personal interests, and applying a bit of my own kind of biomechanical skills to my own training, and moving away from traditional jump measurement to more power output from weightlifting derivatives. So I'm looking at basically doing two lifts before each session. So that's one lift per session, but different days, different lifts. It's either 3 reps of 70 kilograms in a clean or 3 reps of 50 kilograms in a snatch. So both of those things I would for me are in that power lift. There's certainly nowhere near my 1 RM for that, although not massively far away, unfortunately. But the two weights that I can definitely do every time I come to the gym, it doesn't really kind of challenge my technique overly. And I can think about power output when I do those, as opposed to just simply making a lift. So there's a bit of rhyme and reason for that from a personal experience point of view, but it's nothing you'll see in the literature, nothing from a research point of view. So I'm collecting that through output and then taking the mean of those 3 repetitions, and those are the metrics I'm going to pick out. So peak velocity, peak power, peak force, relative peak force, and peak acceleration. Although realistically, relative peak power is the one that I'm going to be most interested in, because I think it has the most transfer to weightlifting success. But each of those things have a value and have a place. But I think that for me is going to be less noisy and more meaningful, and has greater transfer to what I want to get to in the future. And it may well be that actually when I start to get better and better at those lifts, that I might manage to flip and change those loads, but hopefully they'll be going to be stable for a period of time. And I can make better judgments about my own training as a consequence of that. So that's kind of where I am from a monitoring point of view. The elephant in the room was my body weight, and it's something I haven't stopped talking about for the vlog. And I'm not making excuses, but obviously I've had some difficult lifestyle challenges in terms of disturbed sleep and newborns. And what I'm now starting to see is that kind of bite home a little bit. So this graph here shows kind of my morning mass, the first kind of weight of the day, and you can see that's kind of rising quite dramatically. It's up probably about a kilo since she's been born, which is, in the grand scheme of things, is not a huge amount of weight. But when I want it to go down rather than up, it's definitely kind of bad news. I can temper that a little bit with the fact that this is the data from when I get to the bioelectrical impedance, the body composition measurement, the gym, and it's relatively holding firm. So what I'm seeing is, yes, I've probably put on a kilo of mass, but the proportions of that haven't really changed. So yes, there is a little bit of fat, which is not good news. There's also going to come with a bit of muscle as well, which is not bad news. And coming to Christmas, it's only going to get harder to shift that, but that's just being honest and open, accountable to myself, and saying, yeah, it's all right having a reason, but that doesn't mean say it's okay. And I've tried to make a couple of sort of changes to my dietary intake during the day. Really trying to focus on protein consumption and reduce carbohydrate intake. But there are always the challenges, like get home from work and so those few hours when you've got limited capacity to resist temptation and ample temptation at home. It'll be an ongoing battle, and I don't think I'm going to fix that battle. Different times of the year, different phase of my life, I'll probably be better or less able to deal with that. But awareness is the main thing. The next thing really is kind of what's coming around the corner, what's next, what's January's training going to look like. I haven't written out the exact list of exercises yet, but it's going to be front squat based. So I just thought I can explain kind of the decision-making process and how hopefully I'm going to go about this, the periodisation, the planning behind this. So what I'm going to look at is a combination of velocity-based training and percentage-based training. So again, if you're not familiar with that, so percentage-based training would be where you'd have your set number for your percentage of 1RM, and then you set what you do on every day by the percentage from that. So that's kind of where I'm starting the program. We have to start somewhere, so starting on a percentage-based program, and then looking at VBT to inform the auto-regulation of that. So it might well be that the percentage-based program gives me the start point, and then look at the velocities I'm getting, and then make adjustments off that. So this table here is basically just a calculation of intensity, volume, and then obviously load as a consequence of that. So first of all, I've set a target of 160 as an ideal end product of this phase of training. So I'm starting with a goal in mind rather than programming where I am now, because that wouldn't necessarily create overload. So I currently have an anticipated 1RM of 150 in the back squat. So I've put that as a target of 160. That's a 10 kilo increase over the next phase. That's the last 2 weeks of this phase, and then into the next phase as well. So that's about 7 to 8 weeks of training. So I think that's a reasonable challenge. Anecdotally, we always work on around about 85% of back squat to front squat. I can't give you a reference for that. It's just kind of one of those terms that get bandied around it in weightlifting circles, and I think it, anecdotally, from my own personal experience, that kind of sits true as well. So that will put my 1RM front squat as 136, which, yeah, I can imagine that would be up there for me. And so therefore, again, anecdotally speaking, would have 85% would be my 5 rep max of that. So my 5 rep max of my 1RM based on the target goal will be 115 kilos. So that's going to be my work set. So this middle set here, set 3 in the weekly structure, is going to be my hard work. So that's where I'm going to target to get all the gains from that. I'm going to keep the format I've had recently, because I think that's worked well for me. I'm just going to play around with that a little bit, and I'll explain a little bit how it's going to work. So at the minute, I've kind of been a bit not following the right advice and just basically having the same session every single time, where this time I'm going to be a bit more periodized and start off with the same intensity, so nothing changes intensity wise, but I'm just going to increase the volume at that intensity each week until I get to kind of my max out week. So you see this left hand side is session reps. That's basically each session, each week, I up the amount of repetitions that's done. So you can see there between week 1 and 2, there's only one extra rep, but that's coming at the high end. That's coming at the 100% of 5RM. So one repetition of 5RM should be comfortable. I should really kind of leave the gym feeling pretty good. So go 5, 3, 1, 3, 5, and then kind of each set, the low intensity stuff starts with the highest volume, and then I just increase the high intensity volume as we go through the program to 25 repetitions at the end. This is per exercise. So this is for my main kind of primary lifts. So I'll go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 weeks, one extra repetition per week. And as I adapt, hopefully, I can then tolerate more and more repetitions of that particular set. So each week I should get 3 sessions per week on squat. So that's enough exposure. So in the first week it's only 3 at my max, and then 6. And then 9 per week. So the volume will increase quite dramatically across the week, but not necessarily per session. So that's kind of my periodized program, and that's the format I'm going to follow. So hopefully that's going to be quite effective for me. And again, if people find that a useful tool to use, by all means, can have a crack and let me know how you get on. Well, that's me, and hopefully I'll see you next week.